In today's biased news, Libya suffers a devastating flood, the UAW launches coordinated strikes, and the IRS might be cracking down on millionaire tax dodgers. In Libya's coastal city of Derna, a massive flood caused by the breaching of 2 dams during heavy rains has led to a tragic death toll of 11,300 people, according to the Libyan Red Crescent. An additional 10,100 people are reported missing in the Mediterranean city. These latest numbers far surpass the earlier estimate of 5,500 deaths. The storm also claimed approximately 170 lives in other parts of eastern Libya. The flooding in Derna resulted in the destruction of neighborhoods and the loss of entire families. The city's mayor suggests the death toll could eventually reach 20,000 given the extent of the devastation. This catastrophe has exposed vulnerabilities in Libya, a nation grappling with conflict since the 2011 coup that ousted Muammar Gaddafi, led by NATO, the EU, and the US. Survivors recount harrowing experiences of rapidly rising water levels, with some managing to find refuge in higher buildings. Access to affected areas remains challenging due to the extensive damage, with many bodies still buried under rubble and others swept into the sea. Rescue efforts continue, and organizations like the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies express hope of finding survivors. Large-scale burials, mostly in mass graves, are underway in Derna. Libya, which can be defined as a failed state after the Western-led ousting of Gaddafi, has fallen into complete disrepair. Cases of slavery, militia-run cities, and now the visible annihilation of any semblance of infrastructure, coupled with increasingly climate change-caused disasters, paint a very grim picture of the country which is no longer a country's future. No matter what one thought of Gaddafi and his heavy-handed leadership, the consequences of Western meddling, coupled with local Islamist terrorism, has left this part of the world utterly broken and forgotten. One of the many victims of modern imperialism.
We came, we saw, he died. Did it have anything to do with your visit? No, I'm sure it did.
The contracts for 145,000 United Auto Workers members at General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis, which represents the Jeep, Ram, Dodge, and Chrysler brands, expired at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time, leading to targeted strikes at one facility in each company. These strikes could significantly disrupt production, as the automotive industry relies on a complex network of interconnected plants, and more importantly, just like any industry, human labor. Targeted strikes may allow the union to preserve resources and potentially have workers eligible for state unemployment benefits, depending on their location. As for negotiations, the bosses have started to agree on 17 to 20% wage increases. The union initially demanded an immediate 20% raise and 4 additional 5% raises over a 4-year contract. The frightened automakers express a desire to reach a tentative labor deal to avoid a strike, leaving room for last-minute settlements. Stellantis faces additional anger due to its increased use of lower-paid temporary workers and a recent corruption scandal involving former executives giving bribes to union officials. This has fueled resentment among union members, particularly at Stellantis, as promises were made to address corruption within the union. Solidarity and best of luck to the strikers. During Maduro's recent state visit to China, the two leaders expressed their commitment to deepening cooperation in various fields, including agriculture, investment, education, and tourism. Maduro thanked China for its support during Venezuela's challenging times, and expressed support for China's development programs such as the Belt and Road Initiative. This elevated partnership signifies increased political trust and cooperation between the two nations, and is expected to contribute to a, quote, fair and just international order. China has been helping Venezuela circumvent extremely damaging U.S. sanctions, which has greatly elevated the relationship between the two states in the last decade. In Russia, the Kremlin has stated that Russia and the DPRK did not sign any agreements, whether related to military matters or other areas, during Kim Jong-un's recent visit. Kim, who is still in the country, inspected a Russian fighter jet factory that is under Western sanctions. This visit has raised concerns among the US and its allies that it could potentially enhance Russia's military presence in Ukraine and contribute to the development of the DPRK's missile program. In today's lightning round, Russia's central bank has raised its key interest rate to 13%, marking the third hike in 2 months. Ukraine's government has approved a draft 2024 budget, putting the deficit at $41.92 billion and increasing defense spending to $46 billion, over 21% of gross domestic product. Pakistan and Afghanistan have reopened the Torkham border crossing, which had been closed for nearly 9 days due to an exchange of fire between border guards on both sides. The semi-final death toll of the Moroccan earthquake has now reached at least 2,901. And finally, right-wing conspiracy theorist Alex Jones's personal spending has reportedly increased to $93,180 a month. Jones was previously ordered to pay $1.5 billion in liabilities to Sandy Hook families, who have yet to see a cent. And to finish with some positive news, the IRS is initiating a campaign to pursue approximately 1,600 millionaires and 75 large business partnerships who collectively owe hundreds of millions of dollars in overdue taxes. Though it remains to be seen whether anything will come of this investigation, it's definitely a healthy step in the right direction, especially if they start more aggressively scrutinizing billionaires, in addition to the now relatively common millionaire class. That's all for today. We'll be back on Monday with more news. If you'd like to see longer episodes with more in-depth analysis, consider becoming a patron so we can grow and expand.